When I was 10 years old, we got a new puppy. He was a spaniel, the most social and friendly little dog. He would run up to people on the street and greet them with a wildly wagging tail and excited little jumps. He never failed to greet a potential new friend. My responsibility was to walk him every day, usually in the afternoon, but also the occasional late-night stroll. My favorite route was to take him through this little wooded area near our house. This wooded area lay behind the conservatoire and was protected from being cut down due to Siberian flying squirrels that inhabited the area. This tiny sanctuary had an artificial pond in it. It was murky, still water, but it had the occasional duck. It was customary for all new graduates of the conservatoire to swim a lap in the murky pond upon graduation day. It was a rite of passage of sorts. The area consisted of one path from one end to the other, the pond being near the southern entrance, and then another 500 meters of path after it into the woods. That particular night, in the dead of the Finnish winter, our poor puppy had tummy trouble, and my mom, exhausted from a day's work, asked me to take him outside one more time. It was already nearly midnight, but I agreed, seeing how all creatures should be allowed to use the bathroom when they needed to. I also love how the piercingly white snow glows in the night, how, if it's cold enough, your breathing fogs up, and a step on the snow makes it creak in a very satisfying manner underfoot. It was that kind of weather, so I put on my winter jacket and boots and off we went into the pitch-black night. As I usually did, I steered the puppy towards the little wooded area, away from streetlights. He pranced in the snow that reached up to his sides, like an excited rabbit. He seemed all better, pulling me forward so fast, I almost fell over in the snow more than once. The little guy was sniffing every scent left by other dogs in the area, with his tail pointing straight up in excitement. As we approached the pond, the cold air carried with it a peculiar sound, a very steady, very consistent thump, thump, thump. I was a bit confused, since usually the area didn't have much traffic during the night. An occasional fellow dog walker, maybe. But seeing as how all the benches were covered in snow and the path was narrow, it wasn't exactly a spot to hang out in the middle of the night. As we turned to the opening of the pond, I froze. In the middle of the frozen pond sat a little boy. He sat on the ice, which had been cleared of at least a meter of snow, as if it had been dug up to reveal the ice. He was wearing clothes that struck odd to me, nothing modern at all. His clothes were all shades of orange and looked to be made from fabric instead of what kids in Finland wore. No colorful patterns or reflectors. He was also wearing a fur hat and leather mittens. It reminded me of pictures of my mom as a child in the late 60s and her winter clothes. Now, it seemed the thumping sound was coming from this little boy. He appeared to be around 6 years old and was very rhythmically hitting a huge rock on the ice that he was sitting on. But there was a problem with that, because the rock was way too big for such a small human to be lifting it, let alone smashing it repeatedly on the ice, like it weighed nothing. My first thought was that it was just some child from my neighborhood, but the longer I considered this option, the more ludicrous it seemed. The nearest houses were at least half a kilometer away, if not more. I'd seen no one else on my way here, no person that seemed to be watching over such a young child playing nearby. It would take a very uncaring parent to let a child out this late in freezing temperatures, all alone, and knowing that there was a source of water nearby. There was no logical way this kid could be there, unless he was in a very sad home situation. So I decided to save the day. I stepped off the path when the dog leash in my hand stopped me. Our dog, who would always and every time approach new people he met, was now desperately trying to pull me forward in our route to sniff the next pea-soaked snowbank. He didn't even acknowledge the boy on the ice. His eyes didn't steer that direction once. It's like I was the only one to actually see the boy. This boy didn't seem to notice me either. He kept hitting the ice under him. Thump, 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 completely oblivious of anyone or anything around him. There was a weird stillness in the air. All I could hear was the sound of this huge rock bouncing off the ice and sometimes cracking it further. I could see the ice had already started to chip away to form a dent. He must have been hitting it for a very long time, as that pond usually froze all the way down to the bottom. Ice during these winter months is tough as steel. I pulled my dog closer to the edge of the pond, almost holding my breath from anticipation, and the rush of saving a child made me swell with pride.
Hey, are you okay out here? Your parents around?
My voice was so weak, it seemed to be absorbed by the snow all around us. It was hard to speak. It felt forbidden. Like any second, this child would just disappear into thin air if I broke the spell that was keeping him in this world. The boy paid me no mind at all. It was like he was stuck in a forever loop of hitting the ice over and over again, like he was just a mirage from another place and time. I started feeling more and more scared. It seemed that I couldn't form any kind of connection with this child. And now, I wanted to run. So that's what I did. My dog seemed so happy to finally be on our way, as I hurriedly started running on the path to make it to the other end of the wooded area. Good thing our puppy loved to race and forgot the wonderful smells of the yellow snow in an instant. All while I was running and slipping on the frozen path, all the way until I saw a streetlight shine its blissful light towards me and my oblivious galloping puppy. I could hear the perfectly rhythmic, hollow thump, thump, thumping, until it faded to nothing, and I was standing there out of breath, looking up and down the empty street, expecting anything to happen. I went home, and I told my mom what I saw. Of course, she didn't believe me, but every now and then, I wonder if decades ago, a little boy wearing a fur hat and a faded orange coat drowned in that pond on a cold autumn night, sinking to the bottom, slowly suffocating in the water so cold it hurts to touch.
Between the ages of 7 and 14, I lived in an old home in central Indiana. The house was one of the oldest there, with it being over 100 years old. I never felt right in this house. Between the phantom steps on the stairs, the radio turning on by itself, and even a bench lifting on its own, I didn't have a lot of room to feel comfortable. This experience happened to my dad. The basement door to the house was in the kitchen, and when sitting in the middle room, you could see the kitchen. One morning, he was getting ready for work. He had bent over to tie his shoe when he got a weird feeling. He said it felt as if he needed to look into the kitchen. Just as he did, he saw this cloaked figure walk from the basement door across the entire kitchen. This second encounter happened to me. Like I said, I never felt easy in this house, and I would never sleep. So most nights I would lay awake, waiting for my dad to get up for work. When he did, I finally felt safe enough to fall asleep. One such night I was wide awake in the living room, watching TV. Out of nowhere I got that uneasy feeling. I looked over towards the living room door, and I saw something that scared me. A translucent figure with what appeared to be a square head. It kept peering from around the doorframe and staring at me. The door was the only way out of the living room, so whatever it was, it had me trapped. I just covered my head with a blanket and prayed it would go away. Eventually, it did.
It was a cold and snowy night in the outskirts of the small town of Taos, New Mexico. I was lying in my bed with my dog, getting ready to go to sleep. It was around 12 a.m. when I finally turned off the TV, laying my cell phone down. Now, my room was originally a garage my dad and I had converted into my bedroom, which is separated from the rest of the house. I could very well feel the wind in the garage coming in from the outside, so I bundled up under my blankets and fell asleep. Sometime later, I woke up to the sound of someone at my door trying to open it. I reminded myself that I did indeed lock the deadbolt, but still, I began to look for my phone so I could turn the light on before getting up out of bed. I quickly found my phone, but before I could turn it on or get up, I hear the door open. I should add that the way the bed was situated, I was facing away from the door. So when the door opened, I could not see who was there. Not until they spoke. I lay there, thinking that I must have dreamt the door opening, because I didn't hear anyone come in. But then, from the foot of my bed, I hear it.
Hey, brother, your door was locked. That's okay. I'm in now.
It was the voice of my little brother, who at the time of this event was 13. I was 27. I don't move an inch, trying to think how he got in my room without the keys. Why was he even awake at this time? I reminded myself if someone was there, my dog Lotus would wag his tail as he always does. A few seconds pass, and I feel the wag of Lotus's tail start.
Look at me, brother.
The voice says. I still don't move or say anything. I'm doing my best to act like I'm asleep. All I can really do is lie there, wondering what this thing is, standing at my feet, pretending to be my little brother. It goes quiet again. No, I must have been dreaming, must have had a nightmare, I tell myself. I feel a slump in my bed on both sides of my feet. I reach down to the ground and grab my shotgun. But then I'm reminded, I can't do that. What if it is my brother? But why is he in here right now? The thoughts race through my mind.
I know you're not sleeping, brother. Why won't you look at me?
The voice comes again, sounding a bit deeper than my brother this time.
Fine. Be that way.
The voice says, as it heads over to the door, opening it once more, but without closing it all the way. I feel Lotus slowly stop wagging his tail and sit up. I'm too terrified to move. Finally, after what felt like an hour of just lying there, I find my remote, turn on the TV, and I wait to see if I hear anything else other than the TV. I sat up in bed trying to justify it as sleep paralysis, because I have had that before. I stand up and do a sweep of my door, and nothing seems off, except that the door is still open. I walk over to it and open it. It's still snowing outside, but not that hard. But then I see it. There are wet footprints leading up to my bed, but not leaving, and the fresher snow outside my door is undisturbed. I shut the door, lock the deadbolt, and stay up for the rest of the night, TV on and gun in hand.
This was a strange encounter I had on a mountain trip with my friend. I've always loved forests, and I love to go on hikes whenever I can. When my friend, Kate, asked me to drive up into the mountains one day, I jumped at the offer. Kate had a usual camping spot where she liked to bring her ATVs, and occasionally she liked to drive through the woods. She and I decided to take two of them down a path that went right alongside the forest, with a huge valley on our left. We drove for a few minutes, admiring the view. I'd recently taken up photography as a hobby, so I was wanting to take some pictures of the trip. It was about 4 or 5 in the evening, so right around dusk. I was driving along the path when I saw a few deer among the trees. I stopped, hoping to get a nice picture. Kate kept on going, but I shouted at her that I would catch up in a second. I took my camera out of my backpack, dismounted the ATV, and walked a little closer to the group of deer. I stepped on a stick, though, and the deer looked over at me, then ran away. Dang it, I thought. That's fine. There's probably more deer around. Before I turned back, I noticed there was still one deer eating grass in those trees. I crept a little closer, trying not to make any noise. It then whipped its head around, and all of a sudden, I was terrified. Note, I've lived around this area my whole life. I've always known how to deal with animals, and I've practically lived alongside raccoons, hawks, elk, etc. So I had no reason to be scared of this deer. I was about 20 feet away from it, so I wasn't close enough for it to kick me or attack me or anything. But the moment those eyes met mine, I knew something was wrong. This was not a normal deer. The eyes weren't the average soft black eyes of a doe. They were gray, cold, and I swear they were human-like. Then it growled. It wasn't a canine growl, it sounded more like a person trying to imitate a growl. It was deep and angry, and it rattled me to my core. Its teeth were big and sharp, and by no means the teeth of an herbivore. It was then when I knew I needed to go. I backed up slowly for a few steps, still staring at it, straight in the face. Then I turned and I booked it back to the ATV, hopping on, making a beeline in the direction that Kate went. As the wind rushed past me, I gradually heard the birds chirping in the trees. I noticed only then that when I saw that deer, the forest had gone completely silent. I soon caught up to Kate, who motioned for us to take the loop around instead of back the way we came. Eventually, we got back to our campsite, and I thankfully locked myself in the car. I didn't tell Kate, her being the most skeptical person I know. When she finished loading the ATVs back into her trailer, we started on our way back home. We drove along the forest pathway, and as we were about to leave the woods, I happened to look back. Two shining gray eyes stared right into my face, and I heard that growl in my ears. I shivered then, blinked, and it was gone. All I saw then was a dark shadow limping its way through the trees.